Hello, I am Choco, and today's video is about Deltarune, finally! I've been a Deltarune fan since day one, and I've completely fallen back into my obsession with the release of chapters 3 and 4, which were awesome by the way. So I just knew I had to make a video about it. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to make, but since I'm used to making redesigns video on here, I might as well make one about Deltarune. Well, I say redesigns, these are more of my interpretations of the character sprites. Redesign just sounds better as a title. And one last thing, in case I have people watching who are not familiar with the game, I'll have a brief explanation for each character. I won't go too deep into the lore, but you'll at least know who these weird little guys I'm drawing are. But let's not wait any longer and go see my designs of the Fun Gang, including Lancer, Noelle and Berdly. Let's start, of course, with our unwilling protagonist, Kris Dreamer. Kris is a fascinating protagonist because we, the player, are canon to the story. We are possessing them to be able to play the game, and Kris is fully aware and does not like it. The player and Kris's relationship is something I find fascinating. Obviously, Kris does not like the player, but without us, aka without their soul, they clearly can't function well, and would probably pass out at some point. And even though Kris is clearly worse off than we are, the player is just as stuck with Kris than they are with us. We don't have any other way to continue the game. And if we simply give up and close the game, this world is fated to fall into darkness. So you can simply say, stop playing and Kris will be happy, because that's clearly not the case. But even though we're controlling them, and in turn they can't show much emotion, we still get glimpses of Kris's personality through other characters who know them, and my favorite part, from the way Kris responds to the action we give them, like the way they say certain phrases we chose, or how they sometimes are able to move all on their own, even as early as chapter 1 when they protect Susie from King. Quick side note, to remind you that Kris is non-binary and uses they/them pronouns all the time, and their gender is not up for debate, and is not the player's choice. So if I see anyone in my comment misgendering Kris just to be an asshole, I'll just delete the comments, we don't need all that. Anyway, Kris is still very mysterious to us, but it's clear that they're a weird outcast kid who loves to play pranks but also care deeply about their friends and family. I can't wait to learn more about them and see how our relation to Kris as players will progress in the next chapters. But anyway, let's finally talk design. Even though I've been drawing Kris ever since 2018, I've always had a hard time finding a satisfying way to draw them. Of course their armor has always been difficult to get right, but even their hair and face would give me trouble. But I think that this time I've gotten to a design that I really enjoy. I might continue to tweak it in the future, and that's true for all of my designs honestly, but I'm happy with it for now. I don't change the hair between the light world and dark world design, so both have a very messy mullet, with their ahoge forming a heart. And in case you don't know what these light world and dark world are, let me quickly explain. So the light world is basically the real world, in their universe of course. And in this world humans and monsters live in peace, but Kris is the only human in their town. And the dark worlds are sort of fantasy worlds, where objects come to life and you gain special abilities and powers. So the Lightners, the inhabitants of the light world, change appearance when they arrive in the dark world. And each dark world is based in a specific place, like a classroom, a computer lab, living room and so on. Okay, enough exposition, let's talk design. For the light world outfit, first I change their skin tone, since I don't really want to draw them yellow. And I think the skin tone I settled on fits nicely in their color palette. I interpret their sweater as a big sweatshirt with a brown hood and pocket, and I like to add a black turtleneck underneath, as well as fingerless gloves. I make their pants pretty baggy, and added cutouts to them. When I drew this I forgot Susie also has cuts in her pants in the light world, but it's fine, they can both have some. Overall, I like to think that Kris tries to dress cool, but in like an effortlessly cool kind of way. But they probably try too hard, so it backfires and they end up looking lame to most people. But now for the dark world design, my favorite part is the heart-shaped chest plate with the Deltarune engraved on it. The downward triangle is on their belt. I decided to add a belt with extra armor since I always found it awkward whenever I drew Kris, and I felt like the hip area was too bare, so the belt fills out the empty space. The rest of the armor stays fairly simple. I keep them rounded to go with the heart motif of their outfit. And I especially like how I stylized the boots. I think it gives Kris a good silhouette, and it's just really fun to draw. I like to keep their cape pretty long, usually it even covers most of their outfit. I see lots of fan art where Kris has a very short cape It almost looks more like a scarf. I think it looks so good, but I'm way too attached to the long cape to change it. I think I ended up with a design I really enjoy drawing for Kris, especially the armor. I think it looks good without being too complicated. And I should probably mention that I tried a new way of shading for this video. I first tried it with this piece of Tena and Metatan, and it was really fun to do. So I wanted to keep using it for these designs. I'm not sure yet if it's gonna become my main way of shading, but I'm really enjoying it right now. I talked a lot about them, but Kris is done. So now let's go over everyone's favorite purple girl. Now for Susie. She's one of our party members, and a school bully turned absolute sweetheart. Slight spoilers for the latest chapters, but I love how, ironically, Susie became the heart and soul of Deltarune. She's referred to being extremely kind multiple times, even though she's not at all what you'd expect when you think of a kind character. She's loud and brash, and she likes to tease her friends and make fun of people, and she loves fighting, but she also cares so much. She loves her friends, and she'll do anything to protect them, and she just wants to hang out with them forever. And she also has the best relationships with every character. Her and Kris become best friends and go so well together. They're just a couple of weirdos. Her friendship with Ralsei really develops over the chapters, and I love how much they learn from each other. She's obviously so sweet with Lancer, it's adorable. And one of my favorite new Susie friendship is in chapter 4. I won't talk about the other character just in case, but all their interactions are just so great. I love how much they teach Susie, and how funny they are together, and just how well they mesh together. Susie goes great with anyone because she's just that amazing of a character. I also love how Susie's character arc is told through her learning healing magic. In chapter 1, all she does is fight, and you have to warn enemies to stop her from hurting them, until the end of the chapter, where she finally joins the party for real, and accepts to act. Then in chapter 2 she learns a bit of healing magic from Ralsei. She's not very good at it. It costs way too much TP for the little it heals, and she even casts it the same way you would cast like a flaming spell or something. But she's clearly thrilled to learn it. We later know that Susie's been trying to practice it in secret, and by chapter 4 she gets a bit better at it, and she's doing it her own way. She's not perfect at it, and she's not made to be a healer, but she wants to learn, and she carves her own path, not caring what specific role was cast out for her. And this is another great aspect of Susie. In a game where your choices don't matter, and you play as a character desperately fighting for their freedom, Susie completely goes against all that. If you, the player, tell her to do something she doesn't want to do, she simply won't do it. She does her own thing, even in the face of a seemingly all-knowing prophecy. She rebels and refuses to go along with it. We already know that thanks to her the prophecy has been sidetracked, so I'm confident that she will also manage to completely change the ending of Deltarune, and she won't allow her friends to get hurt. Okay, let's finally talk about her design. For the light world, I kept her clothes grungy but simple. Her purple shirt is a bit too big, but it doesn't bother Susie, since it conveniently covers her tail, and she doesn't like people knowing about it. Like Kris, she also has baggy pants, but with bigger cuts in them. I think her clothes are probably hand-me-downs. We don't know what her exact living situation is, but it's clearly not great, so I like to think she wears whatever is given to her. Her Dark World outfit is also pretty straightforward. It doesn't vary much from her sprites. I like to give big spikes to her boots though. That's a very Susie thing, though it must not be very comfortable for Ralsei when it gets used as a stool. I also like to imagine that the magenta stripes on her vest glows. Not very bright, but at least in a glow-in-the-dark kind of way. That way she can be a light in the dark for our friends. Ralsei would probably say that to her and she'd tell him to shut the hell up. Other than that, I like to give Susie long, poofy hair. Messy too, since I doubt she takes much care of it. We do at least know she uses shampoo, since she asks Kris if they want to test it. One of her eyes stay hidden behind her hair. It's also easier to draw that way, because of her long snout. I give her lots of freckles too. She already has some in her sprite, but I like to add even more to her face and a longer arms and legs. Compared to Kris, I find Susie much easier to draw. Sometimes her body gives me a bit of trouble since I draw her way bigger than the others, but overall she's pretty satisfying to draw. I think I might struggle with more intense expressions though. I often fall back on the same faces with her, but the toothy grin and half-lidded eyes are just so perfect on her. Anyway, that's Susie all done. Let's move on to the fluffy boy. Ralsei, the prince from the dark. Ralsei is different from the other two because he's a darkener. He comes from a dark world and cannot exist in the light world. Ralsei is extremely kind, even too much at time, and a huge people pleaser because he thinks that's his purpose. Susie and Kris are the first friends he ever made. Before that, he's been alone his whole life, so he doesn't really know how to interact with people. And because of that, he can come off as pretty awkward and even weird. But Ralsei is really just a big fluffy sweetie. Honestly, it kind of pisses me off when people still think that Ralsei is actually evil, and that he's been pretending to be nice from the start. Like, obviously, you're entitled to your own opinions, and it's totally fine if you don't like him. But I think the whole Ralsei's evil theory is pretty silly. Ever since chapter 1, I've always thought that, yeah, Ralsei clearly knows more than he lets on, but he probably has his reasons. Other than that, he's a nice kid. He loves his friends so much, but he also has the lowest self-esteem possible, since he doesn't even see himself as a real person. Thankfully, Susie, aka best character ever, is here to snap him out of it and tell him that they're real friends and nothing will change that. Like I said in Susie's part, Ralsei's relationship with her is so very sweet, and him learning to be more assertive thanks to her is so nice. His character development in the latest chapters have been so great and so emotional. I really can't wait to see how he grows in the future ones. Talking about the latest chapters, I'm not going to go too into it, but oh my god, there are some Ralsei scenes that have been so terribly heartbreaking and have made me cry like a little baby. His dialogue is so sad, but his sprites, I cannot understand the whole heartless Ralsei debates when his sprites have been so expressive and so good these latest chapters. Ralsei, my sweet little boy, I will protect you from your haters, you are perfect to me. And also, even though I still think that Kris sees Susie more as a best friend compared to Ralsei, we now have evidence that Kris likes Ralsei and doesn't want the player to hurt him, so we don't need to have this Kris hates Ralsei discussions anymore. I also love that Kris goes out of their way to point out the differences between Asriel and Ralsei to Susie. It's so cute. Since Ralsei is a Darkner, he obviously doesn't have a light world design, but I still drew two different ones for him, since his design changes after the end of chapter 1. I've always struggled drawing his face. He never looked bad, but I always thought he could look better. So for this video I did some quick style exploration, and I think the design I ended up with is so adorable, I love it so much. I've never drawn a Ralsei face as cute as this one, I mean come on, how can you look at this and still think he's evil? I used to always draw his horns turned upwards, but I've settled on downwards turned ones. In my new way of drawing him, I think it really fits. I made his fur appropriately fluffy and gave him the cutest little anime eyes ever. You might have seen my sketches, but I also made sure that they look different enough from Asriel. So he has fluffier fur, smaller downturned eyes, and their horns go in different directions. For his robe, I cinched it at his waist to look a bit more detailed, and made the end of the robe and sleeves dented? I don't know what to call this, but yeah, it also adds a bit more interest and it's really cute. His sleeves and upside down spade are patched on. I wanted the seams to be visible so it looks homemade. The hatted design is pretty simple. The robe is just a big cloak, since it doesn't have any sleeves. His scarf hides his face more, and he has white dot for eyes. I drew his glasses full for the hatted design, while I drew them as half circle for the hatless one. It's just drawing preferences though. I think it's easier to draw his expression when the glasses aren't full, but since his eyes are dots on the hatted one, I think full glasses make more sense. I have to say, when chapter 2 released, I was of the opinion that Ralsei looked better with his hat on, at least for his talk sprites. But like I mentioned earlier, his new talk sprites are so good, and this time I had way more fun drawing hatless Ralsei, and I think it's much cuter than the hatted version I drew. And I mean, come on, how can you call this cute face ugly? He's so perfect and I love him so much. But that's it for him. Everyone better love him now, and let's move on to the roundest, cutest bad guy ever. Lancer! My sweet baby boy, my bouncy little pumpkin. Lancer's design is very simple, and I don't change it at all, but he's an honorary member of the Fun Gang and also my son. I have shared custody on the weekends actually. But if you don't know him, he's the son of King, the first chapter's main antagonist, and when we meet him, he's very adamant about being a bad guy. Obviously, as the chapter continues, we befriend him. After all, he's just a little boy and not a bad guy at all. And he accompanies us on more adventures, even when he's not supposed to be there. But he's always a joy to be around, so who cares? But the most important part of Lancer's character that I must mention is his friendship with Susie, of course. You see, Susie has always been told that she's a bad kid, she's scary, and she never made friends and she never learned to trust anyone because of that. But then there's Lancer, who thinks that Susie is cool because she's scary. He wants to be just like her and asks her how to be a real bad guy. So Susie joins his side and they become friends, and they have so much fun together. But near the end of chapter 1 they have a fight, and Susie is furious because she thinks Lancer betrayed her and has been pretending to be her friend from the start. But that's not true, and she realizes that Lancer just wanted to stop anyone from getting hurt. And after all that, Susie learns that violence isn't always the answer, and sometimes you can just talk. And that she can trust people. All thanks to this little bundle of joy that is Lancer. Susie has always been good deep inside, and she has a lot of development in the next chapters, but all of that is jump-started thanks to Lancer, because he showed genuine kindness and friendship to her. Also, besides being such a sweet and awesome character, Lancer is just so funny. I love his insults, they're just silly nicknames, and I love how he talks in general, he's so funny. I love that he's probably the only character who actually genuinely likes Ralsei, but still makes fun of him by calling him a sad clown. He's just a silly little boy, a sweet little peach we love to see, some might say. And finally, coming back to the design, yeah, I just didn't change it. Lancer is perfect as is, just a round boy. The only difference is how small I draw him. I think he might be shrinking every time I draw him. Here's one I made where Susie is holding him so you can see how teeny tiny my Lancer is. But that's it for him, a shorter section since I don't have another design to draw. But I still wanted to include my sweet boy. But before moving on to our next character, let me quickly remind you that if you've ever wanted a personalized piece of art from yours truly, my commissions are open. I also have a Ko-fi page with cheaper commissions available, or if you'd just like to support me. Links to both are down in the description. Thanks for the support, and let's get back to the drawings. Time for Berdly. Berdly. He's the #1 student in Kris and Susie's class, and kind of a condescending jerk, but he stumbles into a dark world in chapter 2 with Noelle, and first works for the antagonist, thinking he's making a better world for Noelle and himself. But by the end, he gets some character development and helps the heroes. A lot of people didn't like him when chapter 2 first released, because they found him too annoying, and to be fair, yeah, he is. He's annoying because he's a nerd who thinks he's smarter and better than anyone else. But we get to see his perspective, and we know he really cares for Noelle. And most importantly to me, he's so damn funny. Like really, chapter 2 wouldn't be nearly as fun as this if it weren't for Berdly and all he adds to the game. His dialogue is hilarious, his bosses are fun, and some very stupid things like his giant golden statue is an incredible gag, 10 out of 10. So yeah, overall, it's not like Berdly is my favorite character in Deltarune. I actually have a hard time deciding on a fave now. It used to be Lancer, then I added Queen and Spamton to the list, now I have Tena, who I love so very much. But the main three are also so great, and there's also Noelle, who's really good. So yeah, all that to say that Berdly isn't my favorite, but is still a great character. And honestly, I hope he becomes relevant again in later chapters. Maybe because of Snowgrave that wouldn't be possible, but it's too funny to get left behind. At the very least, we'll see him at the festival, so I'm excited for that. Also, Berdly has such a banger team. I didn't talk about the music of Deltarune. I think it's a known fact that Toby Fox makes incredible music, and also it's not the point of this video, but for being an intentionally annoying character, Berdly has such a surprisingly awesome team. One that's so cool that its motif makes its way into Attack the Killer Queen, which is the antagonist boss team. By the way, since I'm talking about character team, I didn't mention it in Susie's section, but Versus Susie is such a banger. I really hope it'll come back. I mean, the team played at a very sad scene and it was before our character development, so maybe it shouldn't come back, but come on, it's too awesome of a team to play a single time. Anyway, back to Berdly. Let's start talking about his design. So Berdly is by far the character I've drawn the least out of all the characters in this video, so it was a bit harder to do. His light world design was actually pretty easy, but his dark world design was harder to do. I think his head was my main issue. I feel he has one of those designs that you have to get the shapes perfect to look right, or else he looks really wonky. Facing sideways is fine. I thought about drawing his head the same way I'd go about drawing Sonic squirrels, but facing any other way is torture for me. I think the way I drew his head on the Dark World design looks weird. I was actually gonna have Berdly come last in this video, but I decided to switch Noelle and Berdly because I think my Noelle looks much better, and I didn't want to end on a not bad note, but not particularly incredible note either. So for his light world, like I said, his head is completely in profile, so it's easier to draw. He has his big round glasses, which aren't connected to anything. It's cartoon logic, you know. He has a white shirt with a tighter black shirt underneath, and I decided to interpret the little yellow and blue squares in the sprites as pocket with a pen poking out of it. To be honest, his light world sprite makes him look like he's either wearing a black skirt or wearing nothing at all, so if you draw Berdly rocking a skirt or rocking the Donald Duck look, that's awesome and more power to you, but I landed on a black cargo shorts. I think it's a popular interpretation anyway. My favorite part about drawing Berdly is his wing hands. I like to draw them similarly to the Rito in Breath of the Wild. I think it's a really good way to stylize birds, and his bird feet were also way easier to draw than expected. His light world design really didn't give me much trouble. Now for the dark world design, first of all, I think it's so great. It's really different from the others who have more of a fantasy look to them, but Berdly's really feel like a video game character. It fits perfectly in cyber world. His outfit is pretty similar to Kris, honestly, but with his own spin on it. Kris is more of a classical knight, while Berdly is a cyber knight. His color palette plays a big role in giving up that feeling. I think his bright green and orange are great. But my design is pretty faithful to the sprite, I'd say. I exaggerated his pants to make them real baggy. But other than that, I don't have much to say. Just a real cool futuristic looking knight. His weapon is also really cool, and I'm not sure I totally did it justice. I think it looks cooler in-game, honestly, especially with all the very awesome battle sprites Berdly has. But that's it for this little blue bird, so let's go see the final character. Noelle, my sweet little angel. So, Noelle Holiday is also in the same class as the rest, and she's Kris's neighbor. They're childhood friends, even though Noelle isn't always sure if they're even friends. At some point they've stopped hanging out, so they aren't as close as they used to be. But Noelle is a shy, nerdy girl. She's really smart, smarter than Berdly, but she lets him get first place in everything. And she also has a huge crush on Susie, which is really cute. Big Suzel fan over here. But something really interesting about Noelle is, she might not seem too important gameplay-wise, since she isn't part of the main party. But lore-wise, she might be one of the most important characters in Deltarune. First of all, just for her connection to Kris and their family, but Noelle's own family, the Holidays, are clearly so very important. I won't go too in-depth, because then we'd have to talk about the weird root and all of the ramifications that come from that. But I'll tell you at the very least that Noelle had a big sister, Des, who went missing years ago. And since she was also very close to Kris's family, her disappearance caused the two families to distance themselves, and had a massive impact on Noelle, who became even more scared of everything than she already was as a child. And Des might also be one of the most important characters in the game, but that's just theory talk, so we can stop there. But, other than her lore significance, I just find Noelle to be a very charming character. She's super cute and endearing and honestly very relatable, at least to me. I was so excited when Chapter 2 first came out, and Noelle was a major character. During Chapter 1, I didn't really find anyone else in the class interesting, except for Noelle, who immediately stood out to me. So seeing more of her, and even her being part of your party, for a bit was really cool. It was nice to see a character who has known Kris for such a long time. It's a great way to learn more about them when we have a protagonist who doesn't really talk, or rather the player can hear them talk. It's also really sweet to see her getting more assertive and standing up to Queen at the end. And of course, the Ferris wheel scene with Susie is adorable. A little detail I love about her as well is that she's a rather shy girl who's scared of pretty much everything, but she really enjoys horror movies, because it's something that she can control. Yes, it's scary, but she can just turn it off whenever she wants to. And this makes the scene of her telling to Susie, "You're the good kind of scary," even sweeter, especially when you know Susie's background. But let's finally go over her design. Noelle is definitely the one I doodled the most, or at the very least the easiest for me to draw. For that reason, she's also the one I learned to stylize the most. I really have fun with her design. For both forms, I draw with long pigtails, Our talk sprites make her hair looks like it's in two pigtails, and I know that's not actually the case, but I've been drawing her this way since, at the very least, the release of chapter 2. So I'm not changing now. Though I really like seeing fan art, where she has curly hair with so much volume. I think it looks really good. So for a light world form, she has 2 red bows to tie her hair, as well as a candy cane striped bow around her collar. That's the newest addition to my design, and I think it's so cute. Then she has a black shirt with white detailing, and I used an argyle pattern brush for her vest. Her skirt goes up to her knees. I used to draw it shorter, but I think a slightly longer skirt fits Noelle a bit better. I also changed the way I draw her antlers recently. I used to draw them pretty similar to how they are in-game, but I've been wanting to switch it up. Not sure if it's gonna be my definitive way of drawing them, but it's okay for now. And her Dark World outfit is where I get to have fun. Since the design is so simple in-game, you can pretty much interpret it however you want. So her long white dress goes all the way to her hooves, and has a lace adjacent detailing at the end of it. My favorite part though is her capelet, with a big old hood that's tied together with a big blue bow. And she of course has her pigtails that are also tied with blue bows. Also it's subtle, but her hair vaguely makes her look like she has wings, especially combined with her capelet. I don't know, it's subtle, but the angel symbolism is there, you know? Ah, and I also give her a ton of freckles on both designs. I think it's super cute. But that's it for Miss Noelle, honey darling, sweetie gravy. The fun gang's all here! Ah, this was so much fun to do! I'm so happy to be making a video on Deltarune. This game means so much to me. I wanna say, if this video does well, I'll make another, but I'm really not sure if it's gonna perform well, since it's different than what I usually post. I mean, it's still redesigns, but not One Piece, so... But I really want to make a follow-up video during the main boss and secret boss of each chapters, so I might just do it either way. We'll see. But as usual, I love to hear you guys' opinion on today's art, and please feel free to discuss Deltarune just in general in the comments. I love to talk more about Deltarune with you all, even if it's something stupid. But that's gonna be it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!